Hello, Terence South again, speaking in the line of duty. We've moved now from the Falklands, conflicts, Northern Ireland, and we're out of the army and you're on your own, taking jobs on, basically contracting wherever they come, because confidence really, and what the armies give you to be able to sort problems out. So I was invited to a one-year post in China for the building of the Guangzhou and the Ring Road. That was a real good project. So we're building an elevated road in the middle of a Chinese city with all the problems that comes with it. So what came with it was, I wasn't the first guy to run the job. I was the second guy. So I was following on from someone else who wasn't a military guy, wasn't disciplined in the same way. And so as soon as I got there, it's like, I need to change things. And the problem with developing cultures is they learn one way to do things and that's it. Change management, not an easy thing. There's a lot of things to be learned about change management, and the cultural aspect is one thing that was absolutely massive, because the way you would do it in the UK is not necessarily the way you would do it in China or in Japan. I've known guys from companies like Ford who've worked in Japan, they've worked in Korea, they've set whole factories, multi-million-pound projects up, and they come to China and it's like, start again. I started again when I went to Korea, I'll start again when I come to China, and they've got to learn about the culture. And one way to learn about the culture is learn the language. And that was one thing I was adamant about, and that to understand those people and be able to communicate, you need to speak the language, or at least understand it. Because believe it or not, you might be the most senior engineer in the world, but you are not in control if you have an interpreter. The interpreter is in control, because how they interpret things is to their benefit, not necessarily the project's benefit. And I'll give my analogy there. When I worked in Russia in about 96, 97, we had an interpreter called Sergey. And it was a case of, Sergey, on a weekend, we want all the materials brought to site. We move the traffic management, and that makes everything aligned. We don't want to move the traffic management and the materials arrive. We want it all to happen at one time, so we don't have materials in the middle of the road. You can imagine if you've got cars here, you fix the road, you're going to move the cars there tomorrow, and you've got all your material here, you've got to lug it all across. It's no good. So nothing ever happened on time. And I couldn't understand it. I've told you, and this wagon's late. And one day we had a guy who could speak a little English, and he told us, well, what's your problem? I've delivered it as required. No, we wanted it yesterday. No, today. So we went to Sergey. Well, yeah. And he waffled and he went on and on and on. And then I was sat in a meeting in the UK, and this man's being paid by the day. So if he makes the project last longer, he benefits. But the company lose absolute thousands while he makes a few more rubles. Absolutely ridiculous. You must have someone who understands the local culture and the local language and on your side. And that's for one, but you've got to be able to speak the language yourself, even if you've got that. That just speeds things up. You can throw out, this is what I want, blah, 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 and they put the full stops and the commas in and put it right. Because that was one problem. The guy was an interpreter, he's paid by the day. We paid on the project, one lump price. He was wasting, he was throwing our money away. We were hemorrhaging money because of it. But we had to sort that out. So that's one thing about learning the language. And the other thing is that I'm in China, I've done the Guangzhou and the Ring Road, we've done really well, we've gone and done Guangzhou and Donglu. Job's finished, I'm speaking Chinese. I moved to another job up in Nanjing. So I get to be a regular in Shanghai, and this guy just pulls me one day. Terence, you speak Chinese, yeah? I'll give you a job for one day. Sorry, what do you want us to do? So I want you to come and listen in one of my meetings and be my friend. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll send a car to pick you up. Okay. So I needed to go to the inner city airport for to get picked up. So in the inner city airport with a bag, this guy thought I'd go off a plane, but I hadn't. So I get picked up. This is my friend Terence. He's just flown in. We've been friends for years. He's looking at setting the company up in China, and he's just sitting here to see how interpreters work and things work. At my age, late 50s, it was unexpected that this man would speak or understand Chinese, because it's very much the young people that took it on. And so I'm sat there and conversations going on, and he's taking a floor in a building, and what he's doing is he is organising it, and he's putting where he's putting the desks, how much furniture do we need, where does he need the fire escapes, where does he need all these things. And the plan's there, it's all been priced, it's all done. And he throws a spanner in the works in the last meeting, and he says, I'd like a door here so we can shortcut through there if needed. Oh. And so I've got the builder, I've got the interpreter, I've got me sat there. So, no. And then I hears from the interpreter, how much do I get for that? What's my percentage? How much are you going to charge him? I want more than that. What? So I'm just listening. Dumb old man. Sat there, yeah. Ooh. Well, comes out of the meeting, everybody disappears into their office, and I says, oh, thank you very much for your time, I'm off. Oh, right, I'll see you about. And he's like, what? I'll see you later. Goes out, gives him a text, I need to meet you at the pub. So I met him in the same pub. It was a Banana Leaf in the middle of Shanghai. Yeah, what do you want? What's up? I said, can't talk about it in the office. I said, but your interpreter is actually stealing from you. What? No, she's been with the company years. He says, look, I'm telling you, this is what was said. She asked the contractor what percentage I get. She said, I want more than that. Oh, no, this is negotiation. No, mate. This is what was said. You've paid me to interpret. That's it. Oh, okay. I said, I'm adamant. That is what was said. I said, it's not local language. This is Mandarin. It's okay, Terence. So anyway, he disappears back to his office in Australia. And I get another call from a guy who'd been in that office a lot of years before. Terence, you've said this. Yeah. I think you're right. Wow. Yeah, we got costings, they went up and up and up, blah, blah, blah. So I just got left out of it. The lady who actually was responsible was found to have a very wealthy lifestyle, well above what she could afford and her husband could afford. So working in foreign countries and doing things and learning the language is a whole sort of learning process. You've really got to be aware of who your friends are. You've really got to be careful with that. People who befriend you, always keep your wits about you, because a number of times I've been and I've listened to what's being said and it's not what was translated. So it's difficult, it is. But China, absolutely terrific place to live. And as an older man, during those years, I got a lot of respect, basically because of my age and because of the fact that I'd learnt the language. And that's one of the problems where you get culture now. Culture comes into it where you've got one child in a family quite spoiled, yeah, because the parents dote on it, and then they do everything to help them. And you've got this ability to talk to people, and when you've got these young people coming in, some of the jobs you give them, they feel that they're below them because they've been to university, they've got a degree, but they've got no life experience and they've got no knowledge of how your industry works. They have a degree which says basically you have the tools to start in this industry, but you need to find out how it works and gain some experience. And I'll give you a the story in that we were building these parts for bridges, and we fabricated them, and before very long we were copied. And so it's right, get out the market. What's the strategy? I said the strategy is dump that part in the market. We go into making and assembling, and we send them abroad. We leave the Chinese market alone, other than the really big kit. Yeah, let's go with that. It's a route out of the problem we've got. Because now we're in an overcrowded marketplace, we can't get our price. Our price has got to drop, which we're not going to do. But the Chinese have come in and our price is here, their price used to be there. They've copied some of what we do. Their price is now just below us, and they're saying it's the same thing. Right, okay, bang, we left the market. So anyway, time goes on, we start making modular things. They go to Germany, they go to Turkey, they go to Russia, they go all over Europe. And we've got the business model now sorted. And that was my job for the company I went to work for. Resolve the problems in the factory with regards to quality and help us with the business plan. So did that. So I'm there for 3 years. I'm coming towards the end of year 2.5. And I've got this in place. We're modularizing. We've left the Chinese market alone. There's a huge earthquake in the west of China. You've got bridges collapsing, you've got buildings falling down, you've got a lot of things happening that should never have happened because poor quality, copied, didn't fully understand the engineering behind this piece that we used to make. And so the government comes in and says, right, we now need you to do this because the ones that's got your pieces in haven't had the same results and fall down and etc. And it's like, no, we're out of that market. We're finished. So what I'm saying is, when you go into developing markets as a Western company, you will be copied, but the full technology, they don't understand. We had some seams in the steelwork that we just put a nice little weld along the top, which actually was only there to keep the water out, so the thing became watertight. But what the Chinese had done is they'd fully welded it and said, isn't ours better than theirs? Theirs is only little, ours is huge. But ours was there, so when an earthquake come, everything snapped and it just broke up. And you could put the thing back together. But the Chinese didn't. They kept the whole of the structure bonded together, and the structure fell over instead of all the bits going, right, now you can put them back together, and you get the safety traffic across a bridge, across a structure. We can make it work again, and we don't have these huge costs in rebuilding. So copying is really dangerous, and it's something when you come into business plans and developing countries, you've really got to be aware of. And so with experience like that, I ended up being poached from there before the end of the 3 years. My job was done, everything was running. The most expensive thing at the end of the day in that Chinese factory was me. The factory was running, there was no problems, it was time to get rid of me. And when I made this public, I ended up being poached by an international company and asked to go out to Mongolia to work. And so it was like, yeah, I go out to Mongolia. What? Yeah, no problem, just give us a ring. Yeah, so they told me to, as soon as finishing could be done and I could extract myself from the company, they would take me on and send me out to Mongolia. So we agreed a package, I left, I kept my Chinese email address so people could write to me and I could send email back. So the way I extracted myself from the company was also something that I learned in management, in that if I in China had said, I'm leaving, there would have been a void and I would have created a hole. And what happens when somebody leaves, everybody tries to fill it, and they fill it with the most awful things like, he promised this, he promised that, he said this, he said that. That's not the way we interpreted. The way we interpreted that was in this way to benefit themselves, whether that be within your own company or whether that be in a company you're cooperating with. So when you extract yourself from a company, it's got to be on the best of terms, and it's got to be in a controlled manner. So what I actually did, I said, right, I'll move out with all my email addresses, and all my emails will go to one person in the parent company, and he can tell me what I've got to send back. And in that way, I'd gone into a company, I'd helped sort it out, I'd helped align it with quality, business plan, structure, and the separation of a joint venture into a wholly owned company. And I'd come out, nobody even knew I'd left. Nobody knew I'd gone. It was like, he's been away 2 weeks. Oh, he's gone to, I think they said I was in the Philippines. So I was in the Philippines. Where's he gone now? I think he's in Australia. And I went all these different places in theory. But in practice, I was working for another company in Outer Mongolia, sending emails round with people that didn't jump in that void and create problems which were costly to the company. So nowadays, when I see people leaving companies, I'm disappointed in that professional people can leave a company and as a result, leave a void behind. And if you go back to the recent conflicts like Gaddafi, as soon as you pull that guy out, vacuum. Everybody's got to fill it. Everybody wants to be part of it. Everybody sees it as somehow to make money. And so management change is something which is very subtle. It's not something that's a big, this is how you do it. It's very subtle. You move people around in a very quiet manner. And in the same way as when I went out to Mongolia, I didn't speak Chinese for weeks, but I was looking after 800 Chinese contractors, 800 Chinese people. And the only person that knew I spoke Chinese was the lead guy in the Chinese company. And I told him on the first day, we had a private conversation. I knew a lot of things I'd been told, and I went and told him, I was straight up front with him. This is what we believe. It mightn't be true, it might be true, but this is what we're led to believe, and I need to fix it. And that actually, having a private conversation with him, gave him time to sort it out without it all becoming inflamed. So again, it's just a management style. You don't go in with a big stick. You don't put things under the carpet because they're just bumps in the road later on. You've got to have a clear playing field. You've got to be transparent about what you do. And transparency is everything. And unfortunately, when you have a joint venture, it's almost impossible to be transparent unless you have the right people and the right culture in place. So we used to say, and I come up with this saying in China with the consulate in Guangzhou and a very good friend, Bob Sheed, who was the commercial guy. And we used to say, a joint venture exists on paper and in people's head. A joint misadventure is what you get. And a joint venture is what you organise, a joint adventure is what you get, and a misadventure is what you had. Because when you start a joint venture, everybody wants something different out of it. And somebody, unfortunately, has got to be the leader. A joint venture of 49-51, 50-50 never works. Because you're both putting the same amount of money in, and the other person has got the one with the most shares. It might be one share, might be two shares, has got to lead it. And that will never work. Your joint venture has got to be positive, managed, and that means it's got to be 65-70% one party. Therefore, you can have leadership, and that's the way it goes. If it goes down, if it doesn't work, one party's to blame. And if not, there's a squabble. But going into business, like all business plans, you really need to put the business plan together and have how you're going to sort out conflict. Because conflict in a joint venture or in a foreign country is really difficult. So you've got to have a process, and if you have a joint venture, how you're going to wind it up. Because if you've got a joint venture, say in China or Russia or anywhere else, You're going to help that company. You're going to put your life and soul into it because that's what you said you're going to do. Yeah, in the dream, you want to work together. But in 15 years' time, the life of that joint venture, who owns the shares? Who owns that market? Who owns that brand? All this has got to come out before you join together. So it's not an easy thing setting up a joint venture or setting up a structure in another country. So we've talked again. I'm in Mongolia. I hope to see you again. So here's me signing off, and I hope you have an enjoyable day. Thank you.